We can get started kind of amplifying our charity's voice right now by sharing with everyone that's here on the call. A few more people going. Awesome. Hi, Jude. Hi, Joe. Okay. So I'm also trying to multitask everyone, so do bear with me as I try to both admit people from the waiting room and also chat to you all. Awesome. Great. Okay. So I'm going to let a few more people in, and then I'm going to share my screen, and then we can get started. Okay, awesome. Louise in the chat from Rainforest Foundation UK, and Kirsty from copywriter from the charity sector. Awesome. Welcome, Kirsty. And Sammy from North Devon Voluntary Services. It's very close to my heart. I'm from North Devon, from Barnstable originally. Joe from Muscular Dystrophy. Awesome. Jude from the National AIDS Trust. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for sharing there in the chat. All right. I am going to share my screen now, and we're going to get started because we actually have loads of content to get through today and loads of stuff to share with you all. So you should now be able to see my slides. Let me just open this side so I can see you all too. Awesome. Greg for Team Evie. Thanks for joining us, Greg. So my name is Robin Greaves. If we haven't met before, I'm the co-founder of Pravi. Joining me today is Richard Hall. I'm going to let him introduce himself in a second. The topic today, using AI and storytelling. This is a webinar I really wanted to run because I'm really passionate about being able to use both human storytelling, human voices, and AI technology alongside each other. I see a lot of commentary that's like we have to choose whether to use AI or choose to be human. And I strongly believe that's not the case. And so I asked Richard if he would do this webinar with me so we could talk about how charities can use both technology and that human storytelling to amplify their voice and get their story out there. Sorry, I'm just still letting people in as well. So as I said, my name is Robin. As a lot of you in the chat here letting us know where you're based and who you help. So please continue to do that because that's really great for us to know. I'm building Pravi, which is a AI-powered platform to help small to medium-sized charities find and convert new donors. And I'll hand over to Richard to introduce yourself.
Thanks very much, Robin, and hi everyone who's joined. Great to see some familiar faces and some new faces here as well. And yeah, like Robin, I guess, I really believe that AI is here, it's here to stay and it's growing, but I also really believe in the power of human storytelling. And I'm interested to continue to explore how these things can work together. So I run my own, well, I'm a writer and a consultant and brand storyteller for the not-profit sector. And I run my own private freelance business called Storytelling for Social Good. So I work with charities of all sizes. I'm based in the UK, but I work with charities and not-profits around the world. I also work with corporates on their purpose-led projects as well, and excited to share this space with Robin and talk about AI and storytelling today.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I just realized before we get started, I've already made an error and not shared the sound on my screen. So I'm just going to stop sharing. I'm so sorry, everyone. I'm just going to share one more time because we've got a few videos that we wanted to show you today. So sorry, just bear with me with my my multitasking here. Okay, we should be good now. So let's crack on. Today's session.
Robin, I think you need to share the Canva again.
Oh, sorry. Sorry, everyone. Bear with me. Technical issues. Okay. Try this time. Share sound. Okay. Is that better?
Yeah, oh, there we go. Yeah, perfect.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, everyone. Real technology. So the start of today's session, first of all, I'm going to hand over to Richard to talk about storytelling and the art of persuasion. Then it's going to be over to me to talk about how we can use AI to support, not replace. And then we're going to bring everything together at the end. So if you have any questions, just put them in the chat and we're going to make sure we have time at the end to get to those. If we run out of time, we will also follow up by email or you can contact us on LinkedIn. But now I will hand over to you, Richard.
Thanks very much, Robin. So yeah, I wanted to kind of kick off and kind of go back to the beginning really about storytelling and why I think it's a really great thing and can be a really powerful thing for organizations of all sorts, but particularly charities and not-profits. So if we go on to the next slide. Yeah, and kind of going right back to the beginning, a lot of neuroscientists, anthropologists, social researchers, historians have found really early associations of storytelling and human presence on our planet. This is a cave painting from, I think, 43,000 years ago, one of the earliest examples of kind of human existence. And it's already beginning to hint at how important storytelling is for our lives, telling the story of how we might hunt for food, for example. And throughout human history, storytelling and humans have kind of been very closely intertwined. Stories have helped us communicate with one another. They've helped tell stories. They've helped us understand who our enemies are, who our friends are, which gods we should worship, who to trust. They've helped tell us what's beautiful, what's funny, what's tragic. So throughout human history, we have a really indelible association with storytelling as a means of what makes us who we are and how we communicate with each other. And if we go on to the next slide, um, so from 43,000 years ago to kind of today, if you like, if we look around us now at the things we engage with as humans, from the pop songs we listen to, through the conversations we have with each other, in our law courts, in our social media streams, in our religion, the films we watch, the sporting theatres that we go to have these incredible emotional experiences, in our politics, in the way we learn. Storytelling is really central to all of these things. And so consequently, it's a really powerful way for us to express ourselves to each other, but also for organizations to express what they want to express to their supporters and their audiences. And if we click onto the next slide. So I've got a quote I really love here from Ben Okri, who's a Nigerian British poet and novelist. And it really expresses, I think, the power of stories. So to poison a nation is to poison its stories. A demoralized nation tells demoralized stories to itself. Beware of the storytellers who are not fully conscious of the importance of their gifts and who are irresponsible in the application of their art. So we've got a really powerful message here about what the damage that stories can do when they fall into the wrong hands, and how powerful and pervasive stories can be to nations, to communities, to people. And while this is a kind of a warning note, if you like, about the power of storytelling in the wrong hand, it equally tells a story about just what a force for good stories can be when they are in the right hands and when they're used for positive message and for positive ends. And that's basically the reason I do what I do. I think when we tell stories on behalf of organizations that are trying to be a force for social good in the world, I think they can be a really powerful way of galvanizing people, of getting people to support a cause and ultimately change the world for the better. If we go on to the next slide, um, so thinking about how organizations can use storytelling to help with their fundraising, to help them engage with their supporters, to help persuade the people they're talking to about what they want to, about the importance of their cause. There's lots of different ways of telling the same story, if you like. So just by way of an example, this is an image that you might see in a fundraising campaign. You have some people looking at a kind of bombed out building. And this might be used as a way to persuade people to ask them to give money. However, there's lots of different ways you can then frame that story. So, for example, you could say, please give what you can because, if we go on to the next slide, these poor people can't help themselves. Please give what you can because it's your religious duty. Please give what you can because you live in a rich country. Because no one is free until everyone is free, because they have a right to live in peace, because we must fight the system that created this. So there's lots of different ways of framing the same story, and the way you choose to frame your story will depend on an understanding of the audience, an understanding of your cause and your brand and your organization and what it stands for. But different stories told in different ways to different people will motivate people to act in different ways. And that's really the kind of the art of the story of storytelling for persuasive storytelling for organizations. So we skip on to the next slide. So yeah, if we understand and appreciate the kind of centrality of storytelling to human existence and how everything we consume and everything that populates our consciousness can be is full of kind of storytelling and different ways of telling stories, and that actually storytelling can be a really good. The way we tell stories is really influential in terms of the way we help people to support us or ask people to support us, give us money, engage with us, and so on. How do we decide then what is the best way to tell these stories? And I've got my version here of what I've called the top 10 of charity storytelling. This isn't an exhaustive list, and you'll probably be looking at it and thinking, oh, there are other really good components of storytelling as well. But I think this is a pretty good starting point. And I want to mention it here because I'm going to return to it again at the end of the webinar to think about how AI and humans can work together to help achieve some of these top 10 goals of charity storytelling. I'll just go through them briefly now. The first, and I think the most important thing, is to know your audience, to have a really good understanding of your audience is motivations, you know, what their demographic profile is, what their religious beliefs are, what their politics are, what sort of organizations they engage with, what their stage of life they're at. Have they got children? Whereabouts in the country, whereabouts in the world do they live? Because the more information we have about our audiences, the more we'll have, the better chance we'll have of telling a story that's going to really resonate with them in a way that's going to sort of trigger particular emotional reactions. So once we know our audience, then we need to think about the craft of the story itself. And good stories will always begin with a good hook. We will hook people in, and then we will take people on an emotional journey, really immerse people in our story, because then you get that kind of deep emotional engagement, that deep, which leads to a kind of deep relationship with your brand. Really importantly for charity storytelling, stories inspire people to take action. Often the stories you tell will inspire people. You'll want them to inspire people to give money, but also to volunteer, to sign a petition, or just to support, to share the story with their community. So it's really important to build into your storytelling a really powerful call to action, whatever that action might be. Some of the more persuasive stories might even change people's minds about an issue. Going bigger still, they might influence the national or international debate about a particular issue. Not all charity stories will do this, but if that's what you're seeking to do, storytelling is a really powerful way to do that. Incredibly important for our sector, but also I would argue for all organisations in all sectors. Stories should respectfully, inclusively, and equitably represent the characters in them. And I can talk a little bit more about ethical storytelling at the end if you'd like. But just briefly, I think good brand stories should make sure that the characters have given their consent. They shouldn't stereotype. They should present characters in their full context. So it's a really critically important part of how we tell our stories on behalf of our organisations. Good stories will also positively represent your brand. So they will be aligned with your kind of brand values, with how your brand personality, what your organization stands for. And they will do that by expressing a recognizable and consistent tone of voice. And the style in which we tell stories, whether we're kind of being warm, approachable, and cuddly, or kind of officious and authoritative, or whether we're being approachable or expert, or all these different tones of voice, good stories will also constantly reinforce your brand's tone of voice. And whether they're written or through video or photography or something else, good stories are well told. Stories that are badly told, that are full of mistakes, that aren't structured particularly well, are really difficult to read and consume. So you're more likely to turn people off if you haven't got a well-told story. And then finally, and probably most importantly, I think your story should stand out. So we are constantly being bombarded, as I'm sure you're familiar with, by lots and lots and lots of content. And for your story to really connect with your audience and get them to take notice and engage, then your story needs to have an original component. It needs to have that sense of newness, that freshness that stands out and makes people want to take notice. And so I'm just coming to the end of my section, but I've got a couple of examples of what I think is really great small to medium-sized charity storytelling. And the first one is from Chance for Childhood.
I have a question. What is a segmented multi-channel donation campaign? I have a question. Why is my picture on social media profiles that aren't mine? I have another question. Why is it okay for my image to be published all over the internet when most parents will not allow it? Just one more question. Is that okay? Is that ethical? Is that fair?
So, a really great example, I think, of a story that has a great mood and atmosphere, a really strong kind of emotional register, tells an incredibly powerful message, which very much maps and aligns with that brand's values. It hooks you in, it takes you on a journey, expresses its message in a really kind of well structured way. And it shows an understanding of the sorts of audiences who they want to convince and engage with that message. And then I've just got one more, which is an entirely different feel from Bike Back.
No added sugar. Flavors or colors. Limited offer.
Enough! Oh, hello there. Allow me to introduce myself. I am the voice of reason. I know, weird that I'm not the crazy one, right? Take a look around. The junk food giants have us totally surrounded. But they're responsible, right? They wouldn't market to little children, would they? Wrong. They target us from birth, forcing cute, cuddly marketing down our throats. It's everywhere, and it's a threat to our health. It's like only the wealthy can afford to be healthy. Well, you know what? We won't swallow it anymore. We're Bite Back, activists challenging a food system that's been set up to fool us all. We're demanding change to the way food is made and marketed. So show your teeth, because the health of a generation depends on us. Fight back.
So yeah, very different style of film, really kind of youthful, full of kind of fun and energy, very appropriate again for the brand and the cause. Got a real strong sense of its tone of voice, but also a really well structured message that again sort of grabs your attention, takes you on a journey, and finishes with a powerful message about food packaging. So that's my bit, and we'll be returning to some of these storytelling principles later on in the webinar. I'm going to hand over to Robin.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Richard. I love both those examples, and like a couple of comments in the chat, like so different, but both like so powerful and like really draw you in. And I was like, it's like show your teeth. And I'm like, I'm doing that to myself, like, and I look in the video. Anyway, hey everyone, thanks so much again for joining us. I just wanted to say, I was supposed to say this at the top, that I am recording. I will send a copy of this recording to everyone that's here and also to everyone that registered. People couldn't make it live, and we'll also send a copy of these slides as well, so you can refer to them. So I'd love to know, let me know in the chat, if you're currently using any AI, let me know what you're currently using it for. Please don't just say ChatGPT, but let me know I'm using ChatGPT for something. I'm using it to help with presentation outlines or making checklists, or maybe you're using a different AI tool. I just love to give everyone this opportunity to hear what other people are doing as well. So in simple terms, AI is a computer program that can imitate and predict human behavior. Oops, sorry, I've just got some pop-up windows coming up. Awesome. And I just wanted to give a very quick explanation of how AI works, because what I'm going to be talking about in my section of the presentation today is really about data. And I wanted to explain why data is so important when it comes to using AI. So I'm not a technical person. This is the most simple way that I could explain the difference between what you're seeing on screen, which is traditional computer programs. And then in the next slide, I will show you how AI programs work, and you will see a difference here. So what you're seeing on screen with this A plus B equals C is how a traditional computer program works, so not AI. It works by A, data, which is just a word for information, plus B, which is processing algorithms, or another word for that is just a set of instructions, and that equals C, which is a fixed output. Now, in contrast to this is how AI works, and I'm sure you can see the difference here. At A, we still have data, information, just huge amounts of it that can be processed really, really quickly. At B, we have exactly the same as before. We have that set of instructions. What do you want to do with the data? But the real difference here when it comes to AI is the output. And you can see here, I've tried to visualize this with this C, D, E kind of reoccurring idea. That's because what the AI is doing is it's looking at the data to find patterns, make predictions. And if those predictions are correct, it automatically updates its own algorithm or its own set of instructions, so that over time its accuracy improves. And this is why it can feel like AI is learning or getting better or even thinking when we're using it. But you'll see the real important part when it comes to AI is A, the data, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. Because AI is only as good as the data we give it. And one of the challenges I hear a lot from small to medium-sized charities is that they don't have as much data as the larger charities. So a lot of fundraising optimization software in the market is only suitable if you have hundreds of thousands of donors and have their data. And similarly, it can be difficult to use some other AI tools if you don't have these rich data sets. But I'm going to show you a way we can use some free AI tools and get data to help make the output of the AI more helpful and more accurate. So I'm going to do 2 examples today, and I'm going to do some demos for you so you can see these tools working. I'm going to start with ChatGPT, which I can see in the chat a lot of you are using, which is awesome. I'm going to do something a little bit different to do with inputting data into ChatGPT. Then I'm going to show you Perplexity, which is a less well-known kind of like AI super-powered search engine. I recently started using Perplexity a lot, and I've got lots of value out of it. And I'm going to show you a sneak peek of the platform I'm building, Pravi. I know a lot of you in here are already part of the Pravi community, so I'm just going to touch on that. And if you're interested in what I'm building, I would love to connect with you offline, and we can have a meeting, or I can send you more details. So I'm going to use this language a lot in my demos, and so I just wanted to pause and just explain for anyone that's new to using ChatGPT or other AI chatbots what we mean by the word prompt. So a prompt is just the question, the information, or the instructions that you want the AI chatbot to respond to. So you'll hear me say prompt a lot during the demos today. Now, there are some key steps to follow to write a good prompt. And basically, the better your prompt is, the better the output of an AI chatbot will be. So the key steps to follow to write a good prompt. Firstly, obviously, you need to define the task. So that's, what do you want the AI chatbot to do? You need to tell it as clearly as possible with as much detail as you can. Describing the context. This is really important, and this is where the data comes in. The more information you can give the AI around the context of your request, the more specific its response will be. So this could be information about your organization's mission, or the audience that you're writing for, or who you are, what your role is. The more context you can give the AI, the better its output will be. And then you want to provide clear instructions. So this could be anything to, I want to write some bullet points. I want to create a presentation outline. I want to write in a table or in a calendar. You can include length and tone, things like I want to sound professional, or I want to sound humorous or persuasive. And finally, please don't ever include confidential data in your prompts. So things like donor data, bank details, names and addresses. Don't put any of that into an AI chatbot. Be really careful and keep your confidential data confidential within your organization. So I'm not going to go into the basics of how ChatGPT works because I know that a lot of people have kind of already mastered the basics. It's been out for a while now. But I do have an intro to ChatGPT webinar recording available, which I have run previously. And so if you're new to ChatGPT and that would be useful for you, I've got my contact details at the end of these slides. Reach out to me on LinkedIn or email and I can send you a recording. And I take you through over like an hour session, the start to finish, how to use ChatGPT. So just reach out if that would be useful for you. So I'm going to jump into a demo. And what I want to show here is, as I said, it can be difficult as a small to medium-sized charity when we don't have lots of donor data. I'm going to give you an example here of how I'm going to use data from my Instagram account to give more information to ChatGPT and get it to create a more tailored and specific output based on my data. So what I've done here, this is ChatGPT. You'll see my cursor moving in a second. So I've gone into Instagram and I've taken a few screenshots of my follower demographics. So you can see there's no personal information here. This is just my followers on Instagram, gender profile, age range, location. And this is available to you if you have a business Instagram account with more than 100 followers. I'm going to upload these screenshots to ChatGPT. So if you're using the free version of ChatGPT, you can upload 2 or 3 images or documents a day. If you pay for ChatGPT, you have unlimited document upload. So what I've done here, I've uploaded those screenshots to ChatGPT. I've said, review this data of my Instagram followers for my made-up charity, Save the Trees. And I said, create a summary of my audience demographics. So this isn't my real charity, this is my personal Instagram, but you'll see for an example why it's helpful. So what ChatGPT is now doing is transcribing that data from those screenshots into ChatGPT. So this is really helpful because once we have the data in ChatGPT, there's loads of things we can do with it. Now I've got the data in here. I'm going to ask ChatGPT to help me describe my ideal follower based on this data. So ChatGPT starts creating a demographic profile of my ideal follower. So for charities, this could be your ideal donor, or who are you talking to when you post on Instagram? How do you know your audience, know your followers? If you know the type of people you attract, you can create more content that resonates with them. You can grow your audience by really speaking to them specifically with their needs, their wants, their likes, and really start to know your audience better, which, as you may remember, was #1 in Rich's point of good storytelling, to know your audience. So now I'm asking it to help me create an Instagram content calendar to reach more of my ideal followers. I said to give me ideas for content and format as a calendar. I want to post 3 times a week. Now, this is all just a starting point. None of this I would copy and paste directly onto Instagram. But what you can see here is it starts to create content themes or pillars for me. So it's telling me the types of things that I could post about based on my audience demographics. It's giving me ideas for CTAs and example posts. Now, also here, I didn't give it a lot of information about my organization, Save the Trees, because that is a made-up organization. But what you could do is feed ChatGPT more information about your mission, your organization, who you help, what you want to achieve. So finally, what you can see here, and this is very basic, but I think of this as like a starting point. It's not about using these AI tools for a finished product that we can just copy, paste, and press post. It's about using it as a tool, a thought partner even, to help us get started. We don't have to start from a blank page, and it can also help guide our thinking and give us ideas that we might want to look into in more detail. So that's just one way we can use data in ChatGPT to get a more tailored output. Sorry. Just a reminder as well, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. The second tool I'm going to show you today is a tool called Perplexity, which I think is less well known perhaps than ChatGPT. If you're a Perplexity fan, please let me know in the chat. Perplexity, you'll see in a second when I do the demo, it looks very similar to ChatGPT, but there is a big difference, which is to do with the internet search capabilities. So ChatGPT, if you're using the free version, you can search the internet, but it is limited and it's not very user-friendly when you search the internet. It's a bit clunky. Perplexity, you have unlimited internet search, even on a free account. Everything I'm going to show you today is available on free accounts. They don't want you to have to pay a subscription to do any of these things. So let me jump in and show you what Perplexity looks like. You'll see here from the screen, quite similar to ChatGPT. I've got this text box in the center where I can write my prompts, and it's saving my chats for me down the side. I just press play on my demo and you can see how it works. So this is much more like a sort of super-powered Google search engine. So I'm going to start by saying, find recent reports about charity donor behavior in the UK. What you can see is Perplexity is telling me exactly where it's getting this information from. So where I'm pointing to on the screen, these are the websites that Perplexity is pulling from, and then it's giving me these bullet points with different donor demographic data, the impact of economic conditions. So this is a supercharged way of doing research about any topics that you might want to use in your campaigns. If I click on the little number there, right by the bullet point, it takes me through to the source. And this means that I can really easily check, is this a reputable source? Is this something I want to use in my work? Now, on the other way around, I'm sure you get sent lots of reports. This one's 31 pages, and I don't always have time to read every single interesting report that I get sent on email. And so we can ask Perplexity to help us do that. So you can't do this with anything that's saved on your computer or any kind of private report. This is for publicly available reports that are published on the internet that anyone can access because of privacy reasons. But I'm asking Perplexity, let me just pause. I've copy and pasted that URL into Perplexity, and I've asked it to read that report and generate a summary for me. I've said that I am particularly interested in donations, how much money people donate. But you could say anything. You could say, I'm particularly interested in how small and medium-sized charities are reaching more donors, or I'm particularly interested in AI and technology. Perplexity will read the report for you and give you these bullet points. Now, I'm not going to say that you should stop reading reports altogether, but what I am saying is this is like a quick way of seeing, is a report relevant for me? Should I be reading the whole thing? Maybe there's parts that I can skip and parts that I can read in more detail. This is also really helpful for creating reports or any other kind of research you need to do. So Perplexity gives me these bullet points, and again, this links back to the report. So now I've said, I run a small charity in the UK called Save the Trees. What insights are particularly relevant for me? And this is how I can use Perplexity as like a thought partner. So it's reading through those reports and it's pulling out things that it thinks are particularly relevant to me as a small charity based in the UK. Now, of course, you could tailor this to anything you want, whatever you need. But what I like about this is you can drill down and ask follow-up questions. So if there's something here that catches your eye, or if there's something you don't understand, you can ask Perplexity to explain it to you. It also has these prompts at the bottom, which are suggestions. If I click on one of these, it will just ask that question, and then it will answer the question. And again, tell me where it's getting that information from. So I find this such a useful tool. Like sometimes I would just hear like a concept that I'm not, I don't have deep knowledge about and I want to understand it more. And I find that by doing a conversation in this way, backwards and forwards, you can really ask the questions that you want to ask and it will come back to you with a specific answer, rather than when you sort of Google something and it comes back with a million different blog posts and maybe some ads and like a sponsored article. You can really sort of get to the detail of what you're trying to find. So I've just got a question here from Beth. How does ChatGPT recognize your inputs across different chats to be tailored to you, or do you need to have in the same chat? That's a great question, Beth. So ChatGPT does have a memory function. This is relatively recent. So when you're typing prompts, it will remember details about you and it will store them in a memory bank, which I think is under settings, personalization. If you go in there, you'll see the things that ChatGPT has remembered about you, and you can delete them. You can also turn that function off if that's too creepy and you don't want to do that, that's fine. But you can store information that way. So that's kind of a newer aspect of ChatGPT, that it actually is kind of remembering things that are linked to your account. But thanks, Beth, that's a great question. So now I'm going to very, very briefly talk about Pravi, which is the platform I'm building, and then we're going to sort of bring this all together and wrap up. So at Pravi, we're trying to build a platform that helps charities of any size find and convert new donors. The problem that we're trying to solve is that small to medium charities don't have the deep data sets that larger charities have that allow them to use the fundraising optimization software that is currently available. So what we're trying to do is create a bank of anonymized data sets to help tell charities who their ideal donors are, how to reach them online, and what type of messaging will encourage them to donate. So we are at the moment building up a wait list, and we're starting our user testing at the end of October. I'm going to show you a screenshot on the next slide of what it looks like, because Pravi's not actually live yet, but it is coming soon. If this is interesting to you and we haven't already spoken, please reach out to me on email and LinkedIn, and I'd love to explore this with you more. But this is basically the functionality that we're building within Pravi. So we want to be able to tell small to medium-sized charities for your cause type, for your area of people you support, who are your ideal donors in terms of gender, age range, location, interest, and salary. And then we want to offer some predictions based on our data. Now, our data set is made up of 3 large data sets at the moment, and we're going to keep adding to this as we develop the tool. We have data from the UK Charity Commission, so all the publicly available data there. We have UK census data, which is why we're starting our testing in the UK, because that's the data we're using. And then we've invested in a huge amount of anonymized credit card transaction records. And so through those anonymous spending profiles, we can see things like how often people donate to charity, how much they donate, when they donate, and what causes they donate to. But Pravi is not about sharing names, addresses, contact details. We don't collect or analyze any personal information at Pravi. And then finally, before I hand back over to Rich to help wrap us up here, I do have a few things just to bear in mind when you're using AI tools, and this is broadly across ChatGPT, Perplexity. I've already mentioned this, but it's really, really, really important. Your data is your responsibility. It's really important not to freely give out confidential information that people have given you, your client information, donor information, your financial details. Always fact check before using AI-generated content in your work. AI is getting much, much better, and these kind of mistakes or hallucinations, as they're called, are less and less common. But still, we always want to fact check. We want to check the source and see where that information is coming from. AI is only as good as the data it uses. So it might often hear that AI is biased and creates biased data. And it's not actually true that AI is biased, it's that humans are biased and there's bias in the data sets. When there's bias in a data set, the AI learns from that and replicates it. So this might be bias around gender, ethnicity, all sorts of other stereotypes. If that's present in the data, then that will be learned from and replicated by the AI, and that's something we really need to be aware of. And then finally, I am a huge, huge fan of saying that AI is just a tool to help us get started, and always add your own voice to your final work. Thanks so much. I'm going to go over into the wrap-up session, and I think I'll hand back over to you, Richard.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks so much, Robin. And yeah, some really great practical advice there, I think, and really great insight into how AI can help us with our content and communication, and also some really great watch outs there as well about the particular. I love the fact that when AI just makes stuff up, then it's known as hallucinations, because that's what it feels like it's doing, and it will very convincingly tell you that something is true. And then as soon as you challenge it, very convincingly tell you that the opposite is true. And so you do really need that kind of human editing function before you go and trust that information.
Yeah, that's it. I always say, Rich, AI is like a people pleaser. So it wants to give you the right answer. It will never say like it doesn't know or it's not sure. It will always give you like a confident answer.
Cool. So yeah, so bringing it all together and sort of bringing it back to yeah, kind of storytelling in our sort of storytelling landscape. And how then, and I'll go on to talk about at the end then how we can use AI and how humans and AI can work together to make sure we're still telling the very best stories. So if we skip on to the next slide, Canva's given me this lovely map visual, which really helps with my landscape language. So very crudely speaking, I've divided up all the content that's out there, all the stories that are out there into these three categories: high quality content, medium quality content, and low quality content. So if we skip on to the next slide. So that really high quality content is the one that, as we've been saying, shows a level of audience understanding which is really deep and actually overlaps into sort of deep human empathy. And it's really empathetic storytelling that, because it's built on audience insight, will really resonate with the people you want it to resonate with. It's likely to feature original and creative storytelling, and as a result of that, it's likely to stand out and is more likely to give you trigger engagement with your audiences. And beneath that, we've got the medium quality content, which is, it might show some understanding of the audience. The stories might be well told, but they're less likely to be original. And although you might get some engagement, it's unlikely to really sort of stand out amidst all the other content out there. And then at the bottom, as I'm sure you're familiar with, we've got low quality content, which is much more of a let's just throw everything out there and see what sticks kind of approach. Shows little or no audience understanding. The stories might be poorly told. They'll almost certainly be quite generic. And consequently, they have much less chance of standing out amongst all your comparator and competitor organizations and messages. And if we go on to the next slide, sort of think about how AI and humans are interacting to produce these different sorts of content. So at that top level, we've got content which is increasingly being supported by AI using some of the tools and techniques that Robin has just shared, but it remains human-led because, and the human-led bit of this is the original and creative storytelling and that deep human empathy. And because it's human-led, yes, using AI to help with all the things that AI can help with, which we'll come on to talk about at the end, it's going to give you much more chance of having better standout and much more chance of getting people to engage with your cause. Next one down is increasingly AI-led, actually. So as we've seen, AI can demonstrate some understanding of audience, and actually it's a pretty good storyteller. A lot of AI stories that you feed into ChatGPT, that come out of ChatGPT rather, are pretty well told, they're pretty well structured, the grammar's okay, but they're likely to be unoriginal for precisely the reasons that Robin was outlining earlier, because of the data it is using is by definition sort of pre-existent. So although it's making quite sophisticated connections across data, it's not got that richness of kind of human creativity and human originality that can only come from kind of human empathetic personal experience. So this AI-led content, yes, will trigger some engagement, but it's unlikely to stand out because it's not as original. And then actually humans and AI are equally good at producing low quality content. It's interesting that AI is getting much better at humans, better than humans at this kind of medium to low level content. So that low level content is actually getting a little bit squeezed. It's much more what you see is much more likely to be human led. But it's something that generally we're trying to sort of move away from, and we will move away from, as I will explain shortly. So if we go on to the next slide, which I think is just a map point to say, as you can imagine, this is where we want all our charity stories to be, in that high quality content that's original, engages and stands out. But what's happening as AI is becoming more and more prevalent is something that a storyteller called Joe Lazarus, who's a storytelling expert from the States, quite active on LinkedIn, has called the race to the middle. And I really like this kind of framing. Because what's happening as AI is producing more and more of our content is that we're getting much more of this medium quality content, that it's actually reasonably well told, shows some level of audience understanding, but is not creative or original and does not have that kind of human empathetic quality that will really make your story stand out. So it's squeezing the low quality content, which is probably good news, but it's also squeezing the high quality content. And this is down to all of us, essentially. You know, we are in a position now where we can choose to interact with the AI in a human-led way, which will mean that we'll retain that high-quality content. And importantly for your organizations, you'll retain that high-quality content for your organization. But the less we do that, the more our feeds and the more our landscape is going to be populated by this medium quality content. So, bearing all that in mind, how do we help your charity maintain more of that high quality original content that engages your audiences? Well, here I want to go back to my list. So if we go to the next slide, I think a really great starting point as you approach any storytelling project is to go back to basics and think about what makes a good story, and then consider which elements of that storytelling, that good practice storytelling, can be best achieved by human or AI-led decision making. So if we go back to my list on the next slide. So knowing your audience, as Robin has just shown, AI can be a great shortcut, particularly for small, medium-sized charities, for getting to know some basic demographic information and help you create some of those personas, those pen portraits of who your audience are. It's not going to be great at creating those deep empathetic connections because that needs to come from sort of human experience, but it can give you a great sort of starting point. AI can help you with that storytelling process as well. As Robin was saying, it can, as you begin to construct your story, it can help with the research phase. It can help you develop different themes for your content. And actually, there are GPTs that are storytelling specialists, which will help structure your story in a way that puts the hook up front and then takes you on a journey and finds that resolution at the end. Equally, there are really good fundraising GPTs, which will help you create a fundraising appeal. It's worth exploring. If you do have the paid version of ChatGPT, it's worth exploring some of those GPTs, and because there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, and some are better than others, but there are some that can be tailored for your particular communications need, like fundraising appeals. So in that case, GPT can inspire your audience to take action. Will generative AI help change people's mindsets or influence debates? Well, probably not on its own. Because they are built using pre-existing data, they're unlikely to create that sort of new original argument that's really going to change the debate on something. However, I found it really useful if you're writing a persuasive piece of writing and you've got an argument that you want to present, you can feed it into ChatGPT and ask it to present the counter argument. And that's a really good way of help sharpening your original point. Can GPTs respectfully, inclusively, and equitably represent your characters? Well, this is where sometimes the bias issue will come in, and it can be guilty of recreating stereotypes and not presenting sufficient, or at least presenting selective context. But you can brief it to be better, and if you're not satisfied, first of all, then you can brief it on your organization's values and the sorts of ways you want your characters to be represented, and it will help with that. You can, as Robin was saying, the more information you can give it, the better the output will be. So if you want it to positively represent your charity's brand and tone of voice, then give it as much information as you can about that brand and tone of voice, and it will attempt to recreate it for you. I noticed some of you in the chat talked about using Grammarly, also in Word, I think now as well, but also Hemingway, other writing tools have built-in AI functions that can help with your grammar and structure. I do think to a certain extent these things are subjective. I find ChatGPT writes in the passive voice a lot of the time, for example, so it still needs that kind of human influence to make sure that it's writing in a way that you think is going to match your style and flow and is going to be the most persuasive for you. But it can help with these things, particularly as well if English isn't your first language, then it can help with the real sort of basics of English grammar. Likewise for other languages. But ultimately, will it help your content stand out? And as you might imagine, my view, and I think our view, is not on its own. It can help with all sorts of areas of the storytelling and writing process. But left to its own devices, it will just produce more of that mid-level generic content because that is the data it is scraping in order to produce the results that it does. So, oh yes, my final point. I forgot I had an extra chart here. I think ultimately, if I had to give one sort of piece of advice to any sort of storytellers or writers out there in our sector, it's that it is to remember that you are a storyteller. I think there's a temptation with AI to think that because it's saving us time, it's therefore helping our storytelling process. But actually, the time spent storytelling, the time spent getting your ideas down on paper, The idea is spent making those connections, developing concepts, coming up with ideas. The craft of storytelling is a real joy, and we don't want AI to completely short circuit that and deprive us of that joy. So still draw on all your human experience when telling your stories, all those random connections that you create in your brain, because that's what creates the real interesting, high quality content. And yes, as any good storyteller would be curious, and that includes being curious about AI. So explore ChatGPT, explore other tools, explore different GPTs, and use it to make connections, as I have with Robin here. Think about who's doing interesting things with AI. How can you interact with them and help improve your storytelling as a result? And as with any sort of creative process, it's really good to absorb all these new influences, evolve your storytelling, and renew it. And that way, we will continue to produce those really rich, rewarding, high quality creative stories that we all want.
Awesome. Thanks, Richard. This is our last slide. So I'm just going to I'll quickly wrap up. Put any other questions in the chat. I can see a question from Beth, which I will answer first. But thanks for joining us. You can see our contact details are here on the screen. Richard and I are both really active on LinkedIn, so you can find us there, and also our email addresses. I am really keen to run more of this type of webinar from Pravi with other people, other experts from the charity and nonprofit space. So you can tell me in the chat, or you can message me any topics that are useful for you. I would love to know, and I would love to find someone to come and run more of these webinars. But thank you so much for joining us. And as I said, the recording and the slides will be available. I will quickly ask Beth's question. And as I say, any other questions, please put them. We have time, so feel free to ask now. Beth's question, which is, I heard there is a bias towards, I heard there's a bias towards technology in AI naturally. What do you think? So that's a really interesting question, Beth. My opinion on that would be, it's not so much that the AI itself has a bias to technology, but it's that the people that are creating the AI have a bias. So the people who are building the AI from big technology companies are biased because they have products that they are commercializing. And so for me, that's why it's really important to get diverse voices across tech building these products. So people from different backgrounds, like the nonprofit sector, in the technology space, building AI tools, because the only way to stop AI being biased is to bring a variety of voices and experience into the technology sector. What's really exciting to me is that this is what AI allows. So for me, as a non-technical person, I can come in and found a technical company now because the technology is available for us to do that. And I find that really, really exciting. I'm just scanning down here in the chat. Thanks. Awesome. Hi, Beth. Thank you so much. Thank you for your comment. Awesome. Okay, great. Rich, did you have any final words you wanted to share with everyone?
Not really, just to echo what you said, really, Robin. So yeah, I'm really, really interested in continuing the conversation about storytelling and AI. So please do look me up on LinkedIn or my website, Storytelling for Social Good. If you've got any other examples to share about how you're using storytelling, it's so fast moving, this area. So I'm really keen to listen to and share and talk about experiences of using new AI technologies and learn about how everyone else is finding AI useful in their storytelling processes as well. So yeah, please do get in touch, and thanks everyone for coming.
Awesome. Thanks so much, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day.